Okay, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce our first presenter, Dr. Olga. Over to you.
We love to mythologize innovation and entrepreneurship. They're the glittering icons of our business imaginations. Sleek products, bold startups, maverick founders. In 2007, the world gasped when Steve Jobs pulled iPhone out of his pocket. To many, it felt like lightning in a bottle, a moment of pure genius, the spark of innovation that changed everything. But iPhone wasn't magic. It was the natural outcome of Apple's organizational DNA. The deep structures of design, supply chain mastery, software integration, and ecosystem thinking that had been cultivated for years. By organizational DNA, I mean the core capabilities and routines that quietly shape what an organization can and cannot do. This requires building with both art and science, as statesmen do. Innovation and entrepreneurship are simply the visible fireworks, dazzling but fleeting. But here comes the danger. The biggest mistake executives make today is chasing the fireworks. What too many miss is the wiring, the careful engineering beneath the surface that channels the energy and makes the spectacle possible. For organizations, that is the quiet, deliberate construction of capabilities and strategy that is happening out of sight. In today's world of global shocks, technological leaps, and social upheavals, survival depends on evolutionary fitness. That is the ability of business not only to adapt, but to endure, renew itself over time, and actively shape the environment in which it competes. And that begins by rethinking the very DNA of business itself. Strategy is not accidental. It is a deliberate DNA coding for the future. Since my DNA is that of a professor, let me start with a quiz. Think of it less as a test and more as a moment for reflection. How many of you can explain your organization's strategy in 30 words or less? How many of you feel that your strategy just kind of happens? And finally, does your strategy truly align with the capabilities you have built? Or are you chasing opportunities that your DNA cannot support? These are not trick questions. They are mirrors. Research reveals that on average, 95% of companies' employees are either unaware of or do not understand a strategy. We talk about strategy as if it is this dusty binder on a shelf, or worse, something that will organically bubble up if we just hire enough creative people. Spoiler alert, it rarely does. Strategy is not an accident. It is a disciplined act of shaping the future. It is a conscious alignment of choices, capabilities, and commitments. It is about deciding where to play, how to win, and what to leave behind. It is not only about what your organization does, but what it can become. That is thinking like a statesman. We say we are here today to talk about innovation, but here's the truth. Innovation and entrepreneurship are not the heroic starting points we make them out to be. They are second-order effects of something deeper. They emerge when dynamic capabilities meet coherent strategy. Capabilities are not the individual talents of your team or the resources that you hold, but the active gardening of the nature of your firm. Capabilities also reconfigure based on the changes in the external environment, just like the DNA does. Without that foundation, innovation is just a hopeful experiment. Just as our genetic code shapes how we adapt, a firm's DNA shapes whether innovation is even possible and whether it can be captured. Dynamic capabilities are your organization's capacities to sense new opportunities, seize them with conviction, and transform your organizational processes and structures for the future. So think of your business not as a portfolio of products or portfolio of business units, but as a portfolio of capabilities. Now shifting from an efficiency mindset to a capability mindset is not going to be easy, but it is going to be transformative. That will change how you allocate resources, prioritize initiatives, and how you design your organization. And most importantly, it will make innovation not a lucky spark, but an inevitable outcome of a well-designed DNA. My own research shows that companies that intentionally build what we call boundary-spanning capabilities, those are very specific capacities for managing your partnerships, networks, and alliances, consistently outperform their peers in innovation. They don't innovate in isolation. They reach into knowledge spaces far beyond their walls, pulling in ideas that others can't even see. One of the top nanotech patent holders in the US is not a tech company. It's L'Oreal, a company that did not build its brand on innovation, but rather on beauty, known for skincare, makeup, and hair color, yet ranking among the top in nanotech patents. How did they do this? They leverage their board relationships as very powerful sensing mechanisms, scanning far beyond their industry for the next wave of breakthroughs. But they never set out to become nanotech pioneers. They were not chasing the technology for its own sake. They were future-proofing, quietly engineering their capabilities to serve a deeper purpose. Because L'Oreal never sold makeup, they sold beauty, and capabilities were the canvas on which they painted their future. But here is another hard truth we face. The world today is not a stable stage for perfecting your routines. If your strategy is blind to context, it's like sailing without reading the tides. We operate in an evolutionary landscape and must embrace turbulence, not wish it away. In 2019, together with my co-author, I challenged the academic community to rethink the very foundations of our theories and frameworks, urging scholars to confront the very hard questions we face about how firms today navigate complexity, uncertainty, and dynamic environments. This was before COVID, before the wars, before the tariffs, and when the contours of the global decoupling could only be imagined. Our argument was very simple but provocative. Traditional models assume linearity, stability, and predictability of the external environment. These assumptions no longer serve us well in a very turbulent global landscape. And here's what research tells us. Only about 6% of companies are truly future-built. And the payoff? These few firms deliver shareholder returns nearly 3 times greater than the S&P 1200 average. So the question before you is no longer, how do we optimize this unit, this process, or this margin? Why? Because efficiency is tactical and capabilities are strategic. So embrace the turbulence and examine, have you built a DNA of capabilities that makes innovation inevitable, not just a lucky spark? Is your DNA coded for the future or for yesterday's calm seas, which, let's face it, are long gone? Will your DNA help you survive the next shock? Will it let you shape the environment itself instead of being reactive to whatever comes next? Firms that thrive today are not those that hide from the chaos. They are the ones that evolve with it, anticipate it, and even shape it. They are the businesses that dance with the storm, turning disruption into fuel. So wire your organization's DNA so tightly, so coherently, that when turbulence hits, the company doesn't just survive, instead it thrives. Be like the L'Oreal of your industry. Build your relationships and networks with purpose aligned to the nature of your firm and your vision for how it might evolve. Expose yourself to new ideas by pursuing directions that seem very distant and uncomfortable. Evolutionary fitness isn't optional. It is the difference between being reactive and obsolete versus being proactive and transformative. Remember, the future does not reward the strongest, but it does reward those bold enough to evolve. So what is the mandate for executives? Think like statesmen, build like engineers, and hedge like your survival depends on it, because it does. Thank you.